My name is Ramona, and I'm 62 years old. Nothing prepares you for the moment your own child betrays you. The day of my husband's will. Reading my daughter Sophia looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Mum, you can leave now. This is between me and my mother-in-law." The shock and pain nearly brought me to my knees. How could my own daughter side with Diana over me? Little did she know Harold's will contained a truth that would change everything. Let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button. Nothing hurts more than when the person you love most turns their back on you. Harold and I built our life together brick by brick over 40 beautiful years. We met in college. He was studying business management and I was pursuing art history. From the moment he smiled at me across the campus coffee shop, I knew he was special. His warm brown eyes crinkled at the corners when he laughed, and he had a way of making everyone feel important. After graduation, we married in a small ceremony by Lake Michigan. Our parents worried we were too young, but when you know, you know. Harold had big dreams of owning his own restaurant someday. While many saw it as a risky venture, I believed in him completely. I put my museum curator aspirations on hold to help him launch our first small bistro in downtown Detroit. Those early years were tough, but magical. We worked 16-hour days with Harold, creating innovative menus while I managed the books and charmed the customers. I still remember the thrill when a local food critic gave us our first rave review. Harold lifted me off my feet, spinning me around our tiny kitchen, both of us laughing and crying. Over the decades, that single bistro grew into Hartwell's, a chain of 12 upscale restaurants across the Midwest. Harold became known for his business acumen and generous spirit, mentoring young chefs and donating to food banks. Through it all, we remained true partners. Though Harold was the face of the business, he always said, "Ramona is the heart." We built our dream home on the shores of Lake Charlevoix, a beautiful cedar and stone house with panoramic water views. It wasn't just a showcase of our success, but a warm haven filled with books, music, and the aroma of Harold's experimental recipes. Our happiest moments were simple ones, watching sunsets from the deck, hosting summer barbecues, or cozying up by the fire during Michigan's harsh winters. The greatest joy of our lives was our daughter Sophia. From the moment she was born, she had Harold wrapped around her finger. She inherited his entrepreneurial spirit and my artistic eye, a perfect blend of both of us. I treasured our mother-daughter rituals, weekend baking sessions, summer camping trips, where we'd identify wildflowers together, and our annual Christmas shopping excursions. As a teenager, Sophia would confide in me about everything: her dreams, her heartbreaks, her fears. "Mum, you always know exactly what to say," she'd tell me. Those words felt like treasures I stored away in my heart. Harold built the business, but I built our home. I was the one who attended every school play, nursed every fever, and stayed up helping with science projects. I was the one who taught Sophia to cook her father's favorite meals, to value kindness above achievement, to stand tall in difficult moments. When Sophia graduated from business school and joined her father's company, Harold beamed with pride. "Our legacy is in good hands," he would say, and for a while it seemed that way. Sophia proved herself capable and innovative, bringing fresh ideas to Hartwell's while respecting its traditions. Everything changed when Sophia met James at a restaurant industry conference. Handsome and charming he was, from a well-known restaurant family himself. What we didn't realize immediately was that his mother, Diana, was the driving force behind their empire. A widow like many, thought I would soon be Diana. Had a reputation for shrewd, some might say ruthless, business tactics. The wedding was lavish. Diana insisted on it. "Only the best for our children," she said, though Harold and I would have preferred something more intimate. I noticed how Diana dominated the planning, subtly sidelining my suggestions. During the reception, I overheard her telling guests, "The restaurants will be even stronger when our families unite." Something about her tone left me uneasy. After the honeymoon, Sophia began to change. She called less frequently. Our Sunday dinners became monthly, then occasional. When she did visit Diana, often accompanied her monopolizing conversations with talk of expansion plans and business opportunities. I'd catch Diana studying our home with calculating eyes, as if appraising its value. Harold noticed the shift too, but brushed aside my concerns. "Sophia's just busy building her own life," he said. "It's natural." Then came the diagnosis that shattered our world. Harold's persistent back pain wasn't from working long hours in the restaurant kitchens. It was stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The prognosis was grim, 6 months to a year. I threw myself into caring for him, researching treatments, accompanying him to chemotherapy, preparing the nutrient-rich foods he could still tolerate. We had private conversations about his wishes about the future, about how much we'd loved our life together. In quiet moments, he would hold my hand and say, "Promise me you'll be okay, Ramona. Promise me you'll keep living fully." Sophia visited sporadically, always seeming rushed and uncomfortable around Harold's increasingly frail condition. Diana surprisingly became more present and bringing meals, though I was perfectly capable of cooking and offering unsolicited advice about medical treatments. She began asking casual but pointed questions about Harold's business arrangements. "Has Harold updated his will?" she asked me one afternoon while Harold napped. "These situations can get so complicated without proper planning." The question struck me as inappropriate, but grief had left me too exhausted for confrontation. In his final weeks, Harold spent hours in his study making phone calls and organizing papers. "Just making sure everything's in order for you," he'd say when I inquired. I assumed he meant standard estate planning. The day Harold passed away was unseasonably bright and clear, a beautiful autumn day that seemed to mock our grief. He went peacefully, holding my hand after whispering, "Remember your promise, my love." At the funeral, Sophia stood beside me, but felt miles away. Diana positioned herself prominently among the mourners, accepting condolences as though she were family. I was too consumed by grief to fully register how strange this was. I just knew that as I faced life without my partner of 40 years, I'd never felt more alone. Or the first truly alarming sign came 3 days after the funeral. I was sorting through Harold's closet, a task that left me alternating between tears and smiles as each item held memories, when Sophia arrived with Diana in tow. "Mum, we need to talk about Dad's assets," Sophia announced without preamble. No hug, no asking how I was coping. Diana nodded solemnly. "It's important to get these matters settled quickly, for everyone's peace of mind." I was stunned by their timing. "I'm still going through his clothes, Sophia. Can this wait a few weeks?" "Business doesn't wait, Ramona," Diana said. "Harold would want things properly managed." Sophia didn't contradict her mother-in-law or defend me. Instead, she asked, "Where did Dad keep his financial documents?" "In his study," I replied automatically. "But everything's with our attorney, Mr. Goldstein. He'll handle the will reading when the time is appropriate." Diana's expression flickered momentarily. "Goldstein, I assumed you'd be using the family's corporate attorneys." "Harold has worked with Goldstein for 30 years, I explained. "He's our friend as well as our lawyer." Later that evening, I overheard Sophia on the phone in the guest bedroom. "She doesn't suspect anything. No, I haven't found any separate account information yet. Yes, I know what to look for. Goldstein might be a problem, though." I stood frozen in the hallway, trying to make sense of what I'd heard. Who was she talking to? What wasn't I supposed to suspect? Before I could process it, Sophia emerged from the room and startled upon seeing me. "Oh, Mum, you scared me." She quickly composed herself. "Just updating James on everything." but I'd glimpsed Diana's name on the caller ID before she ended the call. Over the next few weeks, Diana became a constant presence in my home. She would arrive with Sophia ostensibly to support her, but I'd often find them whispering together or abruptly changing topics when I entered a room. Diana began making subtle comments that planted seeds of doubt. "Harold was always so private about finances, wasn't he?" she remarked one afternoon. "James's father was the same way. I was shocked after he died to discover all the accounts I knew nothing about." Her implication was clear. Harold might have hidden assets from me. The suggestion was ludicrous. Harold and I had built everything together with complete transparency. Yet I noticed Sophia watching me carefully after these comments, as though assessing my reaction. Sophia's behavior toward me grew increasingly cold. She questioned my memory of conversations with Harold, suggested I didn't understand the complexities of the business, and even implied that in my grief I might be confused about certain assets. "Mum, did Dad ever mention a safety deposit box?" she asked repeatedly. When I said no, she exchanged glances with Diana. "Men of Harold's stature often keep certain valuables secured separately," Diana explained as though speaking to a child. "For protection." One afternoon, I returned early from a grief support group meeting to find Sophia and Diana in Harold's study. Drawers were open papers spread across the desk. They jumped guiltily when I entered. "What's going on here?" I demanded. "Just helping organize Dad's papers," Sophia said smoothly. "It must be overwhelming for you." But I noticed Diana quickly sliding something into her handbag. That evening I called Harold's longtime assistant, Margaret, who had retired the previous year, but remained close to us. "They're acting like treasure hunters, Margaret," I confided. "As if Harold had secret millions stashed away." Margaret's response chilled me. "Diana has been making inquiries about Harold's finances for months, Ramona, even before he got sick. She called me last spring, asking about overseas investments, claiming Harold had mentioned partnerships with her late husband." "That's impossible," I said. "Harold would have told me." "Exactly," Margaret replied grimly. "Harold knew about the calls. He was concerned." The next day, Mr. Goldstein called to schedule the will reading for the following week. When I mentioned this to Sophia, her entire demeanor changed. "So soon?" she asked, then immediately called Diana. That night I distinctly heard them discussing the plan and what to do if things don't go as expected. Diana's voice carried down the hallway. "Remember, if necessary, we can contest it. We just need to establish that she had undue influence during his illness." I sat in the dark, my heart pounding. Were my daughter and her mother-in-law plotting against me? The thought seemed paranoid, yet the evidence was mounting. The night before the will reading, I found Sophia alone in the kitchen, staring out at the lake. "Honey," I began cautiously, "is everything okay between us? You've seemed distant since Dad died." For a moment, vulnerability flashed across her face. "I'm just trying to protect what Dad built," she said. "The legacy he wanted to leave." "We both want that," I assured her. She hesitated, then added, "Diana says people change when money's involved, even family." The irony of that statement coming from Diana nearly made me laugh. Instead, I simply said, "Your father and I built everything together, Sophia. I would never dishonor that." She nodded, but didn't meet my eyes. As she left the kitchen, I wondered if I'd lost my daughter to Diana's influence, even before we'd heard Harold's final wishes. The morning of the will reading dawned grey and misty, matching my mood. I dressed carefully in a black suit Harold had always admired, drawing strength from the familiar fabric. Today would provide closure, I told myself. Perhaps after this, Sophia would return to being the daughter I'd raised, not Diana's puppet. Mr. Goldstein's law office occupied the top floor of a historic building in downtown Charlevoix. The conference room offered a panoramic view of the lake Harold had loved so much. I arrived early, taking comfort in Goldstein's kind greeting and the cup of tea his assistant prepared for me. "How are you holding up, Ramona?" he asked gently. "One day at a time." I replied the phrase I'd adopted since Harold's death. "I just want this part over with." He nodded sympathetically. Harold left very clear instructions. He wanted things to be straightforward. Sophia and James arrived next, followed almost immediately by Diana. I noticed they'd all ridden together, another small exclusion that stung. Diana wore an expensive black dress that seemed more appropriate for a cocktail party than a will reading, complete with glittering diamond earrings. Several of Harold's closest friends joined us. His childhood friend Robert, his former business partner Frank and Margaret, his retired assistant. Their presence comforted me, familiar faces among the tension. As everyone settled around the mahogany conference table, I reached for Sophia's hand. She allowed the contact, but didn't return the squeeze. Instead, she exchanged a loaded glance with Diana, who sat directly across from me, her expression unreadable. Mr. Goldstein cleared his throat, preparing to begin. "Before we start, Harold requested that I play a brief video message." This was unexpected. Diana straightened in her chair. Sophia shifted uncomfortably. Harold's face appeared on the screen mounted on the wall, recorded perhaps 2 months before his death. Though visibly ill, his eyes still held their characteristic warmth and intelligence. "If you're watching this, I've moved on to whatever comes next," he began with a sad smile. "First, to my beloved Ramona, thank you for 40 extraordinary years. You were my foundation, my heart, my home. Everything I built, we built together." Tears welled in my eyes. Even now, he knew exactly what I needed to hear. "To my daughter, Sophia." Harold continued, his expression shifting subtly. "I've always been proud of your intelligence and determination. I hope you'll remember the values your mother and I taught you: integrity above all, compassion before competition, and family as the true measure of wealth." Sophia stared at the screen, her face pale. Harold's recorded message ended with, "Life is shorter than we think. Choose wisely who you trust and what you treasure." As the screen went dark, Sophia abruptly stood up. "I think we should continue this privately," she announced. "Mom, you can leave now. This is between me and my mother-in-law." The room fell silent. I felt as though I'd been slapped. "Excuse me," I finally managed. "It's just business matters now," Diana interjected smoothly. "No need to burden you with the details during your grieving period." James looked uncomfortable, but said nothing to contradict his mother or support me. Mr. Goldstein's usually gentle demeanor hardened. "I'm afraid that's not possible," he said firmly. "Mrs. Hartwell is the primary beneficiary and executor of Harold's estate. Her presence isn't optional, it's required." "Primary beneficiary?" Sophia repeated, shooting an accusatory glance at Diana. "Perhaps we should proceed with the reading," Mr. Goldstein suggested, "and all will become clear." Diana leaned forward. "With all due respect, Ramona hasn't been involved in the business operations for years. Sophia and James are the future of Hartwell's. Surely Harold recognized that in his final arrangements." "Harold recognized many things," Goldstein replied cryptically. "Now shall we continue?" Sophia reluctantly sat down, but the damage was done. My own daughter had tried to exclude me from my husband's will reading. The pain was almost physical. Mr. Goldstein began reading the formal legal document. As the details unfolded, the room's atmosphere grew increasingly tense. Harold had left me our home, our personal investments, and 51% ownership of Hartwell's restaurants. 25% went to a foundation supporting culinary education for disadvantaged youth, a cause Harold had championed for years. Then came the part about Sophia. Goldstein paused, adjusting his glasses before continuing. To my daughter, Sophia Hartwell Morgan, I leave a 24% minority stake in Hartwell's restaurants to be held in trust and managed by my wife Ramona, until such time as Sophia demonstrates the judgment and loyalty necessary to honor the company's values. Sophia gasped. Diana's knuckles whitened as she gripped the armrests of her chair. Additionally, Goldstein continued, I leave Sophia this sealed letter to be opened and read in the presence of all parties at this meeting. He withdrew an envelope from his briefcase and handed it to Sophia. Her hands trembled as she took it. This is ridiculous, Diana sputtered. Harold was clearly not in his right mind toward the end. This will can be contested. Harold underwent a full psychological evaluation the day he signed these documents, Goldstein countered. The assessment confirmed he was of sound mind and under no undue influence. Those records are available should anyone wish to review them. All eyes turned to Sophia as she stared at the envelope in her hands. Diana leaned close, urging her to open it. With unsteady fingers, Sophia broke the seal and unfolded several pages covered in Harold's distinctive handwriting. The room fell silent as she began to read. Sophia's voice shook as she read the first lines of her father's letter. My dearest Sophia, if you're reading this, then certain suspicions I've had have likely come to pass. This is perhaps the most difficult letter I've ever written, but I owe you the truth, even when it's painful. Diana inched her chair closer, craning her neck to see the contents. Sophia continued reading, her voice growing more unsteady with each word. 6 months ago, I became aware of troubling information about your mother-in-law, Diana Morgan. What began as a routine background check on James's family before approving your executive position revealed something unexpected. Diana has been systematically targeting our family for financial gain. Sophia paused, glancing up at Diana, whose face had drained of color. Keep reading, I urged gently, as shocked as everyone else by this revelation. With visible reluctance, Sophia continued. Diana Morgan's restaurant group has been failing for years. She's leveraged everything borrowed against collapsed investments and faces multiple lawsuits from creditors. But her most disturbing action was orchestrating your relationship with James. At this, James sat up straight, color draining from his face. After reviewing security footage and electronic records, my investigators discovered that Diana accessed confidential information about you months before you, coincidentally, met James at that industry conference. She researched your habits, interests, and schedule to engineer what appeared to be a chance meeting. James turned to his mother in disbelief. Mum, is this true? Diana's composure cracked. Harold was paranoid near the end. This is absurd. But Sophia wasn't listening. Her eyes were fixed on the letter as she read on. The Diana Morgan you know is largely a fabrication. Her wealth is mostly smoke and mirrors, maintained through loans and fraudulent financial statements. Her ultimate goal was to gain control of Hartwell's through your marriage to James, whom I believe was an unwitting pawn in her scheme. James looked physically ill. Sophia's hands were shaking so badly that she could barely hold the pages. Most painfully, Sophia Diana has been deliberately turning you against your mother. My investigators recorded multiple conversations where she planted doubts about Ramona's character, suggested your mother didn't really love you, and implied Ramona was hiding assets that should be yours. I've included transcripts of these conversations with this letter. Tears streamed down Sophia's face as she flipped to the attached pages. Her eyes widened as she recognized dates, times, and exact quotations from private conversations with Diana. Oh my God, she whispered. You told me Mum resented me for taking Dad's attention, that she was jealous of my relationship with him, that she probably had secret accounts. Diana stood abruptly. This is slander. I'll sue this entire firm. Mr. Goldstein remained unruffled. Harold anticipated your reaction, Mrs. Morgan. That's why he instructed me to prepare this. He pressed a button on a remote control, and the room's screen came to life again. This time it showed Diana and Sophia in what appeared to be Diana's home office. We need to secure your position before he dies, Diana was saying on the recording. Ramona has no real claim to the business. She was just a wife. Once we establish that she influenced Harold while he was medicated, we can challenge whatever will exists. Sophia on the screen nodded. But what if Dad really did want Mum to have control? Then he's not thinking clearly, Diana replied dismissively. Men get sentimental near the end. Our job is to protect what should rightfully come to you, and by extension to our united family businesses. Mr. Goldstein paused the video. There are hours more of similar recordings, all legally obtained and all admissible in court, should this matter proceed to litigation. Diana snatched her handbag and stood. This is a setup. James, we're leaving. But James didn't move. He was staring at his mother with dawning horror. You used me, he said quietly. You used our marriage to get to their money. Don't be ridiculous, Diana snapped. Everything I've done has been for you. For me? James's voice rose. You investigated Sophia before I even met her. You engineered our entire relationship. Sophia had returned to her father's letter, reading through her tears. My darling daughter, she read aloud. I know this is devastating. I debated whether to tell you before my death, but feared it would only cause you pain during an already difficult time. I chose this path instead, hoping that seeing Diana's true nature revealed would break her hold over you. Diana made one last attempt. Sophia, don't let them turn you against me. We've become so close. I've been more of a mother to you these past few years than Ramona ever was. At this, Sophia finally looked up, her expression hardening. You made me believe terrible things about my own mother. You manipulated me into treating her cruelly when she was losing her husband, my father. Diana's facade cracked completely. You ungrateful little fool. Do you think your precious daddy built that business empire by being nice? I saw an opportunity and took it. That's business. No, I interjected quietly. That's exploitation, and it ends today. Mr. Goldstein cleared his throat. Mrs. Morgan, I should inform you that in light of the evidence Harold compiled, there are grounds for both civil and potentially criminal charges. Fraud, conspiracy, elder exploitation. Diana's face contorted with rage. Without another word, she stormed out of the conference room, leaving behind a stunned silence. James looked utterly shattered. I had no idea, he whispered. Sophia, you have to believe me. I thought we met by chance. I fell in love with you for real. Sophia couldn't even look at him. She turned to me, her expression crumpled in shame and grief. Mom, I'm so sorry. What I said to you, how I treated you. I don't know if you can ever forgive me. The anger and hurt I'd felt moments ago began to soften at the sight of my broken daughter. She had been manipulated by a master manipulator, exploited through her love for her father and her ambition. We have a lot to talk about, I said carefully. But you're my daughter, Sophia. We'll find our way through this. As the meeting concluded, Mr. Goldstein handed me a final envelope. Harold asked me to give you this privately, he said. Later that night, alone in the home Harold and I had shared, I opened his last message to me. Inside was a simple note: Ramona, my love, protect our daughter. She'll need you now more than ever. And remember your promise to keep living fully. All my love for all my life, Harold. I pressed the paper to my heart and finally allowed myself to cry. For Harold, for Sophia, for the painful truth that sometimes the people we trust the most can wound us the deepest. The days following the will reading were eerily quiet. Sophia retreated to her apartment, not answering calls from James or me. James moved into a hotel, his marriage in limbo. Diana disappeared entirely. Her social media accounts deactivated, her phone number changed. I gave Sophia space while processing my own complicated emotions. The betrayal cut deep. Not just Diana's manipulations, but Sophia's willingness to believe the worst about me. Yet beneath my hurt lay concern for my daughter, who'd had her marriage and her trust shattered simultaneously. On the fifth day, I called Margaret, who had witnessed everything at the will reading. I don't know how to reach her, I admitted. She won't answer my calls. Give her time to process her shame, Margaret advised. What she did was wrong, but she was skillfully manipulated by a woman who's apparently made deception her life's work. That afternoon, I met with Detective Carl Barnes, the private investigator Harold had hired. In his downtown office, he shared the full extent of Harold's investigation. Your husband was thorough, Barnes explained, showing me surveillance photos, financial records, and transcripts. Once he suspected Diana's motives, he spared no expense documenting everything. When did he first become suspicious? I asked. Last spring. Diana approached one of your husband's former business partners claiming to be acting on Harold's behalf, seeking information about offshore accounts. When the partner mentioned it to Harold, red flags went up. Barnes revealed how Diana had researched Sophia for months, studying her career aspirations. Favorite restaurants, even her jogging routes, all to orchestrate James accidentally meeting her at precisely the right moment. And James, was he involved? All evidence suggests he was another pawn, Barnes confirmed. Diana raised him to be the perfect bait, charming, successful appearing, and completely dependent on her approval. Most disturbing were the recorded conversations between Diana and Sophia over the past year, especially after Harold's diagnosis. Diana had systematically poisoned my daughter against me with masterful subtlety. You've noticed your mother controlling Harold's medications, right? Diana had said in one recording. My friend's mother did the same thing, keeping her father sedated to influence his decisions. In another, isn't it strange how your mother never talks about the business transition? Almost like she's planning to keep everything for herself. The manipulation was so gradual, so insidious, that I could almost understand how Sophia had fallen victim to it. Harold wanted to confront them, Barnes explained, but his health declined too rapidly. That's when he developed his contingency plan. I left with a heavy file of evidence, both devastated and grateful for Harold's foresight. He'd protected me even after death. That evening, my doorbell rang unexpectedly. When I opened it, Sophia stood there, eyes red-rimmed from crying, looking younger and more vulnerable than she had in years. Can I come in? She asked tentatively. I stepped aside wordlessly, leading her to the living room overlooking the lake. For several minutes we sat in silence. I don't know where to start, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. Maybe with why, I suggested. Why was it so easy to believe her instead of trusting the mother who raised you? Sophia flinched at my directness, but nodded. I've been asking myself the same thing. It wasn't all at once. It started with little things after James and I got engaged. She described how Diana had begun with gentle observations, how I seemed uncomfortable around their wedding planner, how I didn't show enough excitement about their marriage. small seeds of doubt planted carefully. After the wedding, she became like a second mother to me, always available, always supportive of my career ambitions. She told me stories about how her husband had failed to recognize her business contributions, just as Dad supposedly overlooked yours. Your father never overlooked my contributions, I said quietly. We were partners in everything. I know that now, Sophia admitted. But Diana made me question everything I thought I knew. She'd say things like, "Notice how your mother dismissed that business idea, classic generational jealousy." Or, "Have you seen how she controls the finances? Your father probably doesn't even know what she's doing." Tears streamed down her face. When Dad got sick, she escalated. She suggested you might be mismanaging his medications, that you were secretive about his condition to maintain control. She convinced me you were hiding assets that should come to me. The depth of Diana's manipulation stunned me, even as it explained Sophia's behavior. And you believed her so easily. She had an answer for everything, Sophia explained brokenly. When you'd show me kindness, she'd call it guilt or manipulation. When you tried to involve me in Dad's care, she said you were setting me up to take blame if anything went wrong. She even had fake financial documents showing suspicious transfers you'd supposedly made. Did you ever once ask me directly about any of this? Sophia looked away, ashamed. Diana convinced me you'd just lie, that confronting you would make you hide things better. She paused. But that's no excuse. I should have trusted you. I should have remembered who you are, who you've always been. Yes, I agreed. You should have. When I read Dad's letter, saw those recordings, Sophia's voice broke. Everything collapsed. Every conversation with Diana played back in my head with new clarity. I saw how she'd manipulated every situation, twisted every interaction. And James, Sophia's expression crumpled further. He swears he knew nothing about his mother's scheme, that he truly fell in love with me. But how can I ever trust that our entire relationship might be founded on a lie? What do you want now, Sophia? I asked directly. Forgiveness, she whispered, though I don't deserve it, and a chance to rebuild what I've broken between us, if that's even possible. I studied my daughter, this child I'd carried, raised, loved beyond measure. Despite everything, my heart ached for her pain. Forgiveness isn't a single moment, I told her. It's a process we'd have to work through together. I won't pretend what you did didn't wound me deeply. It will take time to rebuild trust. I understand, she nodded. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Then that's where we start, I said, reaching for her hand. One day at a time. As Sophia left that night, the weight on my shoulders felt marginally lighter. The path to reconciliation would be long and undoubtedly difficult, but at least we had taken the first step. Over the following weeks, Sophia and I began the delicate work of rebuilding our relationship. She moved back into her old room, temporarily needing space from James, while determining whether their marriage could survive Diana's deception. Our first real breakthrough came during a rainy afternoon as we sorted through Harold's belongings together, a task I'd been avoiding. Each item held memories. His favorite sweater that still smelled faintly of his cologne, the worn leather briefcase he'd carried since opening his first restaurant, the collection of vintage corkscrews he'd gathered over decades. I remember this, Sophia said softly, holding up a chipped coffee mug with "World's Best Dad" painted in a child's unsteady hand. I made it in second-grade art class. He used it every Sunday morning until the day he got sick, I told her. Said it made the coffee taste better. Tears welled in her eyes. How could I have doubted him? Doubted you? This opened the floodgates to honest conversation. Sophia finally shared the full extent of Diana's manipulation, how she'd isolated Sophia by orchestrating conflicts with her friends, how she'd subtly encouraged distance between Sophia and me, how she'd reframed every family memory to support her narrative. She had an answer for everything, Sophia explained. When I'd mention a happy childhood memory, she'd say things like, "Interesting how your mother always made sure you bonded more with your father than with her," or "Notice how in that story your mother was absent while your father did the fun part." The perfect gaslighting, I observed, making you question your own memories and experiences. James called Sophia daily, pleading for a chance to talk. After 2 weeks, she finally agreed to meet him at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown. "He showed me evidence that he knew nothing about his mother's scheme," Sophia reported afterward. Bank statements showing she controlled all their family money emails, revealing how she'd manipulated him too. He's been in therapy since the will reading, trying to understand how he missed the signs. "Do you believe him?" I asked. Sophia sighed. "I want to, but every time I look at him, I wonder if our entire relationship was engineered. If Diana researched what kind of man would appeal to me and molded James to fit that profile." "People can be manipulated into situations," I offered carefully, "but not into genuine love. Only you can decide if what you two built together is real, separate from how it began." As we worked to heal our relationship, the business needed attention too. Together we took control of Hartwell's operations, with Sophia stepping into a co-leadership role under my guidance as Harold's will had stipulated. The employees rallied around us, many sharing stories of how Diana had approached them, seeking confidential information about the company over the past year. 3 months after the will reading, Diana resurfaced unexpectedly. James received notice that she was selling her home and relocating to Arizona. She requested a meeting with him, alone. "Don't go," Sophia urged him. "She'll just manipulate you again." But James felt he needed closure. "I have to understand why my own mother would use me this way," he explained. He returned from that meeting visibly shaken. "She showed no remorse," he reported. "Said she did what any smart businesswoman would do when opportunity presented itself. Called me weak for choosing loyalty over ambition." This final confirmation of Diana's character helped Sophia and James begin rebuilding their marriage on a more honest foundation. They moved into a small apartment together, intentionally declining my offer of financial help. "We need to build something that's truly ours," Sophia explained. 6 months after Harold's death, Mr. Goldstein called with news. "Diana Morgan has filed for bankruptcy," he reported, "and there are several fraud investigations underway regarding her business practices." "Will we be involved?" I asked, concerned about prolonging our connection to her. "No," he assured me. "Harold's documentation has been provided to the relevant authorities, but your testimony won't be needed. Her financial house of cards was collapsing regardless." On the anniversary of Harold's death, Sophia, James, and I gathered at our lakeside home for a private memorial. We shared favorite stories, laughed about his quirks, like his insistence that pasta could only be properly cooked by the light of a full moon, and cried together for his absence in our lives. "Dad saved us all," Sophia said as we watched the sunset from the deck. "Even from beyond, he protected our family from Diana's scheme. He always said the true measure of wealth was integrity," I reflected. Something Diana never understood. As winter yielded to spring, I found myself emerging from grief's heaviest shadow. Harold's final letter to me had urged me to keep living fully, and slowly I began to honor that wish. I joined a cooking class, volunteered at the local food bank Harold had supported, and even planned a trip to Italy, where we'd always talked about retiring someday. Sophia and James welcomed me into their lives in a new, healthier way. Sunday dinners became a tradition again, sometimes at my house, sometimes at their apartment. James, freed from Diana's influence, revealed himself to be thoughtful and kind, genuinely devoted to Sophia. One evening in early summer, they arrived for dinner with special news. "We're pregnant," Sophia announced, her face glowing with joy. "Due in January." As I embraced my daughter, I felt Harold's presence strongly. "Your father would be over the moon," I told her. "Mum," Sophia said earnestly, "I want you involved in every step. This child will know their grandmother and the incredible woman she is." The healing wasn't perfect or complete. There were still moments when painful memories surfaced, when trust felt fragile. But with each passing day, the wounds left by Diana's manipulation became less raw. We'd all learned valuable lessons about recognizing manipulation, setting boundaries, and the importance of direct communication. The most profound lesson was understanding how easily relationships can be poisoned when money and power enter the equation. Harold had built his business empire with integrity as his guiding principle, and in his final act, he'd protected that legacy, not just the financial assets, but the values that truly mattered. As I sat on my deck that evening watching the sunset Harold and I had enjoyed together for 40 years, I felt peace settling around me. Life hadn't turned out as I'd expected, but perhaps that was the point. We don't get to choose what happens to us, only how we respond to it. Have you ever had a relationship tested by someone trying to come between you? Share your story in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more about navigating family challenges and finding strength in difficult times. And don't forget to hit that share button. Your story might help someone else recognize manipulation, but before it's too late. Thank you for listening, and remember that sometimes the most valuable inheritance isn't money, but the wisdom to recognize what truly matters.